Good morning, everybody. Minister of Industry, Director of the Ramón Areces Foundation, I reiterate my thanks for making available this fabulous venue and this fantastic event. Very satisfactory. We could talk about conjugate between economy and healthcare, and working for 30 years in healthcare. And this perfect combination reinforces the main message that we conveyed yesterday, which is the very high value for society that investing in healthcare has, and consequently investing in medication and its research. We'll have high-quality presentations and closing with a panel discussion with the value associated to medication, price, the transfer of the value, the incremental value, the concept of value, and how we can all work together to identify and convey this value to society and the patients who need it. We also had an opportunity yesterday of having Anton Costas with us, the President of Economic and Social Councils, that gave us three main messages. The first is that health is the best recipe for prosperity of a country. The second message, we need a social covenant to reach that prosperity. And the third message was that participative governance, bottom up, from down to the top, was the ideal governance when facing uncertainty. And he helped us to distinguish between uncertainty and risk. During the whole day, we had a common denominator devoted to the concept that in allocating resources in healthcare and medication is not an expenditure, it's an investment. From my initial words yesterday, I issued a call for you to become ambassadors of this concept and convey it to society at large. So talking about investment, not expenditure, there's a reflection from the pandemic that we have lived through a different perspective. Yesterday I was talking about a humane perspective and its impact, but I'd like to reflect on how we have had positive effects in our country because of the investment, and we have been able to navigate through the complicated situation given by COVID. We needed vaccines. We've had them, we manufactured, and we needed drugs for the patients who didn't have COVID, and we have manufactured them and delivered them. So there are many examples that, together with the healthcare system and a very, very high quality personnel from a healthcare point of view, have allowed us to cope with the pandemic. And it calls for deep reflections. First, how we have invested in areas that were up to par, although we still have room for further improvement. And the first one is the area of supply and manufacturing and an industrial presence in Spain. And as I said, we had the opportunity of not scaring and terrorizing society with a lack of supply when we more needed it, right? We made it, but it doesn't mean that because of our solid presence, which is quite strong and solid, there are no places for improvement. We had the Manuchart study included in the dossier of the event, when we have some key data, 103 manufacturing plants for human medicines, 300,000 professionals, and investments of over 10 billion years a year. And all this shows how robust and solid we are from the industrial point of view. But we can do better. And for that, we need resources, and we need greater investment. And why do we believe there is an area of improvement? We can become less dependent on outside provider, increase the specialization of our plants, or upscale our economies. And we're doing good we can feel proud, but we have to keep on working to be even better. Another reflection linked to the COVID pandemic is the area of leadership, as we have shown in R&D. As a country, we have to be proud of R&D, which is a reference and a benchmark model. It is a benchmark that yielded the best results in COVID, and we have led recruitment in COVID trials in Spain. And in this situation, it's because of what I call a virtuous cycle. A virtuous cycle that made us realize that there was a return on the investment, but there are improvements for improvement and growing and expanding our investment. The virtuous cycle is the basis of private and public investment so as to allocate the appropriate resources for the research in the country. And this has given us a vanguard position of leadership, being one of the leaders depending on the conditions in Europe and the second in the world as to the number of patients recruited in clinical trials. We are leaders in Spain, and we have brought many benefits to our professionals' competence. And this virtuous cycle biofeedbacks itself, and it reaches out to the patient with a double advantage. You can be treated by the best specialists that were training and to have access in the early stages of drugs in the pipeline. So we can be extremely proud of our situation, but we can improve the scenario beyond clinical research, where we can expand our presence through public-private cooperation, and we can change and transfer this ability to improve to basic research, for example. So COVID pandemic has given us very messages. Some are negative and some are positive and some are cause to be proud. But I go back again to the initial reasoning we started with yesterday. We don't talk about investment. They still talk about expenditure, about spending money. And in society, the message hasn't taken hold. They have a problem of a connotation of concern, a problem. Instead of investing in healthcare, in medication, in research, we try to complement this concept with empirical evidence, as was presented by Anton Costas yesterday. And clearly we have seen yesterday and throughout the whole last year that an improvement in investment, improve on quality and fairness in a society, and increasing employment too, and productivity. Today we have brilliant scientists that will show additional evidence. We have Diego Financiero and international analysts. And Diego Vizcaíno showed that a plan that would increase by 2% in the GDP until 2025 could increase 47 million additional euros from 240-50. It's a leverage effect. We invest in more, and during the 15 next years, it grows 5% more than if we hadn't invested, right? It's an accelerated effect, a leverage effect. And in this empirical presentation, we have a great opportunity. We had yesterday the great opportunity of enjoying his presence yesterday from Columbia University, Frank Lichtenberg, and he will reinforce this empirical evidence on this impact in life expectancy and how it is directly attributable to new medication being available in the different countries. We were talking about some of those data yesterday, and we have a scoop now. Today, there's a Spanish study in oncology with real Spanish data that will allow us to give a response to the recent controversy that we face nowadays on the availability of oncological new medications. Thanks for this study, Professor. We are eagerly awaiting to share this good news of the impact of oncological medication in Spain. So, it just doesn't make any sense to talk about expenditure. All stake parties have to explain this to society as a whole, to everybody. And I think, and I advocate a call for action. And there are 4 specific action points that I believe could be activated. The first one is very clear. We have to reinforce our healthcare system, endowing it with greater resources. This is crystal clear. Secondly, we have to reform the need, adapting to the new needs. We're exposed to pandemic, new medication, new diseases. Third, undoubtedly, to facilitate the easiest access to innovation within financial sustainability parameters, and then increase efficiency. We need to activate all these actions, and we have to make available digitalization tools and new models for retribution and identification of such a procedure. But how are we going to do it? It's up to us. Three things within our reach. First, work together, hand in hand, administration, managers, healthcare professionals, patients, Farmaindustria, and secondly, a structural long-term vision. We were talking about it with Madam Minister, have a long-term view, not always rely in the short term, and third, explore new working ways that consider medication as an investment with a social, economic, and healthcare return. With the Farmaindustria, we're committed. Society does need us, and we're here going on innovating for people. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Jesús.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so I give the floor to Madam Minister of Industry, Commerce and Tourism, Madam Reyes Maroto. Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, Jesús, Farmaindustria, representatives of the pharmaceutical industry, all the speakers and guests to this very important meeting, and friends all. It's an honor to participate once again in this event that cooperates with the Ramón Areces Foundation. We have chosen a topic that, as you said, is also a declaration of intention in itself, the social value of investing in healthcare. Well, I think this is a cause for debate and reflection, and also a call to action to know about the social and economic contribution of medications and healthcare technologies and the pharmaceutical sector and its contribution to the industrial growth and exports in our country. As Jesús says, there is a perfect marriage, a perfect combination between healthcare and economy. You're not the only economist who's devoted himself to healthcare sector. I reached this combination, perfect marriage, of professor of healthcare economy in the university, and I quit because I have a very relevant endeavor now, which is the Ministry of Industry, and to give a higher profile of the social and economic value of the pharmaceutical sector. You have to make the best of it because we contribute from different points of view to visibility and the contribution of the pharmaceutical industry in our country and worldwide as well. An industry which is undoubtedly strategic. The data that will be presented afterwards, Diego, he's a good friend of mine. That's the best in the AFI company, Analistas Financieros Internacionales. He has a very professional attitude in his reports, and it will make evident how they generate quality employment, a high technology sector, of course, because of this very high proportion every year devoted to R&D. And it's a sector that, besides producing, selling, generating employment, has brought many pharmaceutical companies to Spain. And in this map that you have outlined, we can manifest the opportunity moment that Spain has to advance right now, as Jesús was saying. The pandemic undoubtedly has reinforced once again the strategic character of this sector and the need to develop initiatives that will foster the development of the pharmaceutical sector in a country, ensuring at the same time supply, equity in access to new medications, and of course, sustainability of the healthcare system. This industry leverage on the healthcare crisis due to COVID-19 to reposition itself and to bring, as Jesus has said, manufacturing and packaging of vaccines to our own country. We were able to develop the vaccine of COVID-19 by a Spanish company, IPRA, and one of the countries that acted the quickest in the vaccination procedure. And we also were able to have a strategic reserve of health technology and products, supporting from the ministry different projects to reorient our industry to the manufacturing of certain equipment and tools, contributing also to reinforce our industrial capability and to improve the mechanisms of scientific cooperation. And we were able to be leaders as well in clinical trials linked to medications to test efficacy against COVID-19. This is undoubtedly a collective success. It's a collective success. It was a benchmark cooperation between the private and the public sector back then, and we have certainly reason to be proud. But as Jesus said, we're facing many challenges, and we have to do so reinforcing private-public cooperation to go on developing and innovating stable and sustainable ecosystem, not only in Spain, in Europe as well. You know that the pharmaceutical European strategy is going to generate a new regulatory framework for Spain. And Spain undoubtedly will be key, because we shall hold the presidency of the Council during the second semester of 2023. So we have to profit from the drive that the Spanish presidency will be able to do and apply to this new regulatory framework of the sector. This new community strategy was reinforced here in Spain with the measures in the plan of transformation, recovery and resilience to promote the industrial tissue, to improve our systems in matters of challenges facing the pharmaceutical industry. There are initiatives already under development, like the new strategic plan on pharmaceutical industry. We are pioneers, and we're working between industry, ministers, science and innovation as well, in order to facilitate the development of a sector which, as I said, was strategic in Spain. Innovation, access, sustainability, as I said, fostering supply chains and reinforcing our strategic needs. And together to this pioneer exemplary plan, we also have presented a strategic project, PERTE, as we call it in Spain, on healthcare vanguard, present and future proposal of great relevance for our country. And it tries to attain its main objective, which is the improvement of health and investing in health, as you say, all the time, and improving the quality of life for our population. So undoubtedly there will be many objectives to fulfill that have to do not only with the quality of life, but through this Spanish plan, PERTE, we go to foster economic, social, and employment objectives as well. And this project, PERTE, has shown that scientific knowledge and healthcare innovation on a vanguard are crucial for social transformation, because science and cutting-edge knowledge are the keys to welfare. Welfare that is key for coexistence, which is a common goal that we both pursue from the private and the public sector. This plan, PERTE, is also a strategic instrument to reinforce primary care, together with the digital transformation plan of healthcare and primary and community care, which is part of our strategic plan. We want to incorporate digital technologies in the healthcare professionals' work, in the relationships with the patients, in maintenance and follow-up of people with high requirements of need by digital solutions such as telemedicine, the data transfer, and facilitate processes that support healthcare primary centers, sharing resources or the communication with other equipment. And together with this tool, the PERTE will develop our industrial capacities and in short, to generate quality employment. From our ministry, we're setting up different initiatives which are linked to the PERTE on healthcare. We have issued a summons to bestow grants for sustainability and innovation on healthcare equipment products and pharmaceutical industry with more than 11 million euros. We have financed 17 projects, and right now we are going to work on the second issue that will be published at the beginning of next year. And to summarize what we're doing from the ministry, I'd like to mention two initiatives. One is very well known by all the actors present in this forum, the ProPharma program that we developed in cooperation with the Treasury Department and the Ministry of Health that makes it easier to improve markets, internationalization, new technology, new production processes, R&D, and enhancing our investment in the companies that have to do with the development of industrial tissue in Spain. Every 50 new companies are benefited this year, and you can reduce, importantly, the contributions in taxes that you pay. But there is another non-visible instrument, and not so much, which is the important role played by the clusters, the innovating entrepreneurial hubs. These hubs and clusters are deploying innovation strategies and improving entrepreneurial competitiveness also in the healthcare. In Spain right now, we have 7 such clusters in biotechnology and healthcare. 7 clusters, of which 597 companies are included, employing more than 250 employees, a full network linked to biotechnology and healthcare. And we're supporting these with digitalization, technological improvement, with many lines financed by the European funds. In the last summons, we have financed 10 projects linked to healthcare with an investment of more than 2 million euros. And I urge you to be more ambitious. All the different parties included in these clusters or these networks have to make use of these grants and subsidies to advance and presenting projects that are so useful, especially when reaching out to SMEs. All these programs, as I said, have the main goal of reinforcing our industrial ability in healthcare and the pharmaceutical sector, and in short, contribute to improve its economic input and also the social contribution that your sector provides. And I'm finishing. In today's situation of uncertainty from the administration, we must generate confidence and reinforce even further the private-public cooperation. In my understanding, it's crucial, and I think we share that opinion because it is the main instrument we have available to face together the different challenges successfully. The pharmaceutical industry is a key agent for any healthcare system because of its essential and fundamental contribution to the improvement in quality of life. And also in the pharmaceutical industry, every year we have a new study that reflects its generating ability. So this is located in Spain, and it is close to our own territory. So this shows our commitment with 2030 in guaranteeing a healthy life together with the objectives of the WHO. Thank you for your effort, your determination, for investing in healthcare, developing innovation, which is necessary to improve the quality of life in a population, and also to be able to go on cooperating, offering some certainty. The government values and acknowledges your contribution to generating trust and confidence during times of uncertainty. You did so during the pandemic, and now that we witness uncertainty generated by Ukraine, well, the social value of investing in healthcare makes patent as an instrument to improve. So let's go on, work together, deploying this very important agenda that contributes to reinforcing our pharmaceutical industry, and us go on, as your motto says, investing in health. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señora ministra.
Well, and without further ado, we have already said that the goal today is to go down a few steps in the analysis that were done yesterday in this forum and talk with a greater depth about that concept of social value of the drug or medication. I give the floor to the General Director of Farmaindustria, Juan Guillermo, who is going to introduce the next speaker. Juan, please, you have the floor.
Buenos días.
Good morning. It has been a pleasure to be able to start this first panel with Professor Frank Lichtenberg, who really doesn't need an introduction. For those of you who were here yesterday, you already know him. And he told us about his own perspective and his own experience regarding the impact of drugs, innovative drugs, on longevity and also the direct and indirect benefits that the investment in innovative drugs has had. As we said yesterday, and as the President Jesús Ponce has mentioned this morning, the drug, medication and health at large is an investment. It's not an expenditure. We saw that during the pandemic, and we see it on a daily basis with the new drugs that are being discovered. And more specifically so in the case of the pandemic, it was estimated that more than 20 million lives were saved during the first year thanks to the vaccines. But the effects and the figures are those that economists, as Frank Lichtenberg, have been proving and demonstrating in all the studies that they achieve year after year. More specifically so, Professor Frank Lichtenberg, who is from the Columbia University, has been for 30 years researching and studying all these issues, researching the impact of drugs on longevity, researching the health and non-health savings that are generated by the new drugs, investigating as well on the indirect impact of drugs and medications on the productivity. When people can't go to work and increasing the productivity of the employees. And this work has been presented in more than 150 publications, working in more than 20 different institutions of research and academic education. I would like to remind you two working areas where he has been very effective. One that we mentioned in a study presented 2 years ago on the social value of medication, in which he showed that 73% of the increase of longevity between year 2000 and year 2009, that was 0.754 years in 30 developed countries, 73% of that increase in the life expectancy was due to the medications that were introduced during that period of time. This means 1.73 years of increase of longevity. In another series of studies that Professor Lichtenberg has achieved, he has calculated first for the United States and then extending this analysis to other countries, that the savings that are generated by the pharmaceutical innovation are of a great amount, even to being able to prove and that each pharmaceutical innovation can generate €2 or up to €7 of savings in the national health system, and also generating additional savings that are non-health related for the economy and the society. We also have studies, complementary studies, that show that the indirect savings in the productivity can be estimated between 2 and 8 times of the cost of the pharmaceutical investment. If we put together all these benefits, direct health related, non-health related, with indirect on the productivity, economic productivity, we could say that at a minimum each euro is generating 4 euros of benefit, economic profit. So, without further ado, without further introduction, I would like to give the floor now to Professor Lichtenberg, who, as we said before, as Jesús Ponce said before, the president of Farmaindustria, has started a new line of research dedicated to the Spanish case. And more specifically so, he has selected the oncological drugs in order to achieve 2 types of measurements. First, the impact that those innovations have had, oncological innovation, oncological drugs between 1999 and 2016, the impact on longevity of the patients with cancer, the reduction that has of deaths thanks to the new treatments, the new medications during that period of time, and also he's going to present his estimation using the traditional methodology of cost effectiveness of these drugs. This is an analysis that is it's absolutely new for the Spanish case, and we think it's something that could be extended, as Jesus said before, and it was mentioned yesterday as well. It reminds us the importance of being able to compare information among the countries, be able to collect the statistical data of what would be the total social value that medications have, and specifically in this case, the oncological ones. It's a pleasure, a great honor for us to having you here with us, and we invite you to make your presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank Farmaindustria and the Ramón Areces Foundation for their invitation to participate, because it is a privilege to be able to listen to presentations such as Professor Lichtenberg's. And it's also pleasurable to devote time to analyzing how investing in healthcare becomes a central motor of the economy, particularly in today's circumstances when we're conditioned by the geopolitical context, internationally speaking. Yesterday, Professor Anton Constance, we have to face like a Hamiltonian moment in the history of Europe. We're facing a landmark, an inflection point, and it's very important to allocate resources appropriately, exactly, timely and adequately, because resources are always limited. And it is a particularly important moment now. We must design policies that not only help us to offset the economic cycle, trying to find a balance in the short term at the present time. No. We have to lay the foundations of an economic recovery that should help us to keep growing, and not only next or year after next, but during the next 10, 15 years. And that's the situation right now in Europe and in Spain. Right now. And very briefly, if you will allow me, I'd like to remind you of the figure of Miguel Lliveros, the president and founder of AFI, a great friend of Farmaindustria, who unfortunately passed away this summer. It's very difficult to replace him, but to underscore that he was really, truly convinced of the great opportunities in our country, leveraging on our competitive advantages, and how Spain had the ability to modernize itself. And he always insisted on this opportunity on investing in healthcare as one of the fundamental pillars for leverage of Spanish economy for growing not only more, but growing better. which were his words. And this is precisely the leitmotiv of the report we wrote under the auspices of Farmaindustria. We try to call your attention on the relevance of the healthcare sector in Spanish economy. There's a wide array of activities covered by this epigraph, and also how it contributes to the rest of the economy as a whole, not in isolated silos or a niche, but permeates and transfers its positive aspects to the whole of economy and the whole of society. And there's also a prospective view. Today's snapshot is important, become aware and diagnose the current situation, but also carry out a prospective analysis facing the future. Since we have to allocate limited resources, what do we get out of it as a country, as the economy and society, if we were to invest in this? Well, that's what the report is about. And I will tell you about it now, of course. And very briefly, I would like to call your attention of the nature of the crisis that we just experienced. Yesterday, we were talking about the economic crisis as a consequence of the pandemic, and I'd like to insist on this, because the crisis have been from economic and financial problems. The Great Depression, the crisis of 2008, and so on and so forth have this be related to your important impact on socioeconomic impacts for globally speaking. And as economists have accepted this as a call for reflection, we were always talking about this relationship in between. It was neglected. We haven't paid sufficient attention to this relevance of healthcare for economy, and also has made evident the dependence between welfare as the definition of the OECD. The welfare, meaning education and healthcare, is related to economy, and it has a very, very significant economic impact if we lose welfare. So, as the initial part of our report, we underscore some fundamental elements. Healthcare is a fundamental pillar of Spanish economy and one of the most efficacious. We're right now debating the minimum income, the minimum earning wages. Well, it's not only a healthcare problem in lengthening years of life, which is very important. It's more essential to live longer, as Professor Lichtenberg has said, but it's also a policy that increases territorial and social cohesion in the country. Secondly, we have to strengthen healthcare systems, which I believe is a necessary condition to have a good economy. The Secretary of State yesterday talked about this false dichotomy or separation between healthcare and economy. There's no human life or economic life without healthcare, without a general acceptable healthcare level for the whole of the country. We just can't have an economy or production. And finally, recovery. Recovery from an economic point of view post-pandemic to allocate resources. And the healthcare, therefore, is quite central, very much aligned with sustainability and digitalization objectives of the ministry. In healthcare, we join all of it, so they complement each other. And I would also like to say that from the economy point of view, Juan Guillermo was saying, Jesús also, the president of Farmaindustria, there's always a connotation of expenditure, spending money, too closely linked to it. And in healthcare activities, there's also a huge sector of economic engine, which accounts for 9% of the added value in this country. It's a very significant turnover, and in terms of employment as well. Employment is a parameter to take into account, and we can see that 10% of employment is concentrated in healthcare activity, 1.8 million employees. They have a quantitative aspect to it, but qualitative too, because there are some human resources profiles in the scope, because we are always analyzing the labor market, and there is a quality aspect in here. What's the human capital that we enjoy in the healthcare sector? Well, in the first place, the presence of women is the majority, like about 75%, which is very important to fight the structural problem of gender inequality at working opportunities, and also a higher level of training, which is significantly greater than in other sectors of the Spanish economy. And that's very important. We need to add on assets, and that these professional assets be of a greater quality to improve our productivity, which is another structural weakness of the Spanish economy. And this is not a coincidence. There's many reasons and efforts undertaken in the last decades have made possible something that we haven't been able to do in other sectors of economy. It's the dual training, professional, hands-on practice with the residence programs and hospitals, and this marriage of the platform of training healthcare professionals is highly correlated to the very high quality of the staff in Spain. So we have a specific weight in terms of economy and occupational rates, which is very significant in Spain, and not only from a quantitative point of view, but also qualitatively as well, with high-quality employment. So the internal return rate in this area is greater than in other sectors because of a better technological capital and a better human capital. So it sure makes sense. And it makes sense also to allude to the external projection that our country has reached in this field. We're not only interested to say that we have a significant weight in the whole of the Spanish economy. No. More than that, these activities compete as equally as well outside our domestic territory, because the Spanish economy, our domestic market, doesn't have the necessary size to keep growing. The recent story in our country means that because of opportunity or need has internationalized itself on an increasing rate. And to be successful with return on added value in creation of economy and employment, we want them to be truly competitive. Very good competition in the international area. Well, the Spanish pharmaceutical industry is well integrated, well competitive international, with the 12th exporter of pharmaceutical products, and the market share, quite striking, is greater than Spain has in the whole set of international exports. We have an advantage. We have a competitive advantage in the pharmaceutical sector in Spain. We're very successful exporting. I was talking about human capital and explaining the competitive advantage. Here it is the same, and the minister said so. We don't start from scratch. We needn't reinvent the industry with the technological components. We don't have to start ex novo. No, we have about 100 manufacturing plants for human use, 16 million euros a year as a turnover. 10 million are exported, and it's 1/4 of the import-export of high technology sectors, which is certainly not a small deal. It has a great weight in the economy. How does it compete exporting and internationally? It competes very well. That's a good conclusion. Not everything is positive, was pointed out yesterday too. There's challenge elements, of course, the dependence from some active ingredients and healthcare products, and we also have to increase strategically scale production and specialization. But we're starting from a very good level from which to work.
Another element is the intensity in innovation. Well, this is really very important as well. We don't have in the Spanish economy so many areas that are able to generate intangibles. And this is what the economy of today is all about. It's not growing by the Marshallian way of increasing the size, increase assets due to the path of quantity only. It's fundamental that we have this marriage between research, innovation, and industry. As I told you, with the dual training aspect of MIR and other programs in Spain, well, this happens again. We have analyzed many sectors of the Spanish economy, and this triple connection is not frequent. Far from that, many sectors do aspire to reach what health activities have been able to achieve. This coordination, collaboration, of course, it can be improved, but it's much greater than what we find in other environments when we study industry or Spanish economy at large. And this is very relevant as well. And I also could tell you that this is research apart from this triple connection that exists there. It's a setting where the distance between research and the practical implementation is tighter, more narrow. And this is important for this country as well, where maybe we are more demanding, or we need to see we are more in a hurry to see the results of the research and how this is seen in the economy, because we are not as patient as other countries that have been years and decades and centuries with an awareness of the importance of basic research, applied research as well. And they give more time to that investment. Here we have this difference. We also have a way of shortening and responding to that demand of obtaining results in a shorter term. And this is also very important. And it's not a sector, well, these are not the activities, health-related activities from the economic point of view are not isolated from, far from that. This is also important because when we have to invest, we could say that from the point of view of the political deciding person, we have explained this as a specific weight. We have competitive advantages. If I put €1 here, it's going to have a very reasonable return, but it's isolated. It doesn't have. It's not connected with the rest of the economy. Well, in our work, we have tried to show that health activities and activities on health do have an interconnection, industrial linking in the economy between health activities and the rest of the economy. We talk about €1 invested in health and research, generating the economy 1.6 euros of gross added value, direct, indirect, or induced. Every million of euros invested in the sector contributes to the generation maintenance of more than 15.6 employments. So these are traction effects that do go beyond the sector itself. And there are service activities, industrial activities, engineering that do benefit thanks to the investment activity of health activities. And this is very important as well, to consider the sector. Those activities are inducing multiplying effects that increase the efficiency and increase the potential growth of our economy. Not only is it going to have a €1 return, will have a euro invested here will return on here, but of many more activities that are in the more outer perimeter of the healthcare sector itself, from the pharmaceutical industry. Beyond that, there is a fine rain of mist of economic effects that are derived, that happen every time we put €1 in this type of activity. And these externalities as well, this is a reference as well to the level of expenditure. How are the resources used efficiently in Spain? We are not the countries that invest most nor that expend most, but we have a quite reasonable use, efficient use of our resources, and this is worthwhile to be mentioned when we are going to make decisions on how to assign the resources. Another thing that we do in this work is to try to go into depth in the positive externalities that are derived from the existence of health activities and this drive, these good conditions or competitive advantage that we have in our country. And what are we talking about here? Well, we talk about It's expressed not only through these tractor effects that I mentioned before, but it's also possible to have other pathways through which this is materialized. What are we talking about here? We have elements as the redistribution of the income or coming close to equal opportunities. We saw how in the first years of life, the influence of the first years of life in the health and the socio-economic and professional life of people. Health is a correcting element of the inequality, something that from a cyclic and economic point of view could be the same for us, but we see that inequality is not profitable either. It generates social instability and political instability, and this is conditioning at the end as well economy and gives rise to concerning consequences. Worrying consequences. It brings us closer to equal opportunities, and it is particularly seen in the balancing effect that investment has, the value of health services have, in order to, well, the part of the population with less resources. Those healthcare services represent more than 25% of the effective income of the 20% of the poorest population, against 6% of the wealthiest ones. This has the decile distribution of income, and what this represents in the green line, the value of health services perceived by each one of these sectors of income of the population in Spain. So we can say that we don't only have to see the monetary income, but the effective income, that is the monetary income and the services that I, as a citizen, have access to. If we bear in mind this, we have this balancing effect. And this is a point where Spain is not scoring too well. We are not within the OECD of the countries considered more egalitarian. And this is measured in the economy. We use an indicator that is the Gini coefficient of distribution of income. If we bear in mind this balancing effect, we could see that this Gini index is reduced to 1.7%. Spain, in simpler word, would be a country that is less unequal if we take into consideration this component. And it is an element as well, not only from balancing, not only from the point of view of the income, but also from the point of view of the territory, the place where you live. And it's nothing new if I say that Spain, when this decentralized structure is conditioning very much to the country, and this is how it is. We have the regions, the territorial structure has its weight in the public policy decisions. And we also have a certain unbalance. When we compare with other European economies, this territorial balance is not good for us in this picture. And here we have a value contribution that is also balancing in the service delivery that permeates throughout the whole territory. And also, if you see what a hospital represents in a city of mid-sized city, in a province capital, this is the employer very often, and maybe the main unit of economic activity. It's not only delivering healthcare services, but we have an economic unit as there is no other in that place. And this is a focus of generation of activity and talent, human capital that is qualified, that comes to these places. A balancing effect once again, a vertebrating effect in our country. And I mentioned as well that when we decide how to assign resources, we can see that we start from in a sector with a specific weight in gross added value, in employment generation, good innovative intensity. That is not alone. It is able to have interindustrial linkings, collaborate with other sectors, and demand sectors and services from other sectors. This is a dragging effect, so to speak. These are qualities that are quite interesting. And what we did here is let's make an exercise, a prospective analysis, in order to see what happens. How should the Spanish economy assign the resources in the coming years? Not only go beyond the short term of this situation, but see what we can do when we have to assign the investments in order to be able to better grow, solve some of our structural problems, and definitely reach a greater welfare, a greater GDP per capita, and converge with our European partners. And what we see is that at this respect, we should take into account some restrictions, no doubt about it. We have the sustainability of public finances on the one side, and also the increase of the demand of healthcare services that are derived from the aging of the population. We have more and more needs in this field due to a simple reason. This innovation, pharmaceutical innovation, the one that Professor Lichtenberg referred to, is making us have more years of life, and this is a fantastic news. But this greater life expectancy forces the society and the economy to make decisions, because we can find a scenario where can be in the scenario where these needs are required with a high volume of expenditure that at the end will be more debt. Or we can make another decision, that is investing well and generate more economic growth, more resources with which to take care about those needs. We have bet for this second option. And that's why we alluded to these two scenarios. One, inertial, where we don't make decisions on the use of public resources. We are still like we are. We keep growing with the health expenditure more or less in line with the growth of the GDP. Or we take another decision, an alternative scenario, where we increase the public expenditure, public investment in health around 2 points of the GDP in the scenario that you mentioned before at the beginning of this session. And this inertial scenario, it's not that it doesn't have costs, it has costs as well. There is a cost of opportunity of not increasing the investment in health. And according to our estimates, will be for 5.09. Next year we will be in levels around 2%. But our demography is the one it is, our demographics, and it seems reasonable to think that we will be placed in levels around 1.7 in 2027, then fall towards 1.3 of the growth of the GDP, with all the difficulties it has to generate economic scenarios in the long run. But a scenario where the demographics and the aging of the population are conditioning us very much. This scenario, inertial scenario, is affected by the decrease in the working factor. It's difficult to increase the active population, so the economic growth can be losing strength. And against that, we have an alternative scenario in which we bet for investment of those 2 GDP points in the short term in order to generate or to act on some of the driving factors of growth. Here we start from, well, the methodological approach has been to use an aggregate production function. If you remember the economy, we have the factor work, capital, and total production of both. We concentrate on the work factor and how this is going to increase on this factor. This health is going to increase this factor. These 3 elements: increase of active population, increase of the labor life, increase of productivity. We have to analyze the macroeconomic effects, increasing the GDP and the resources destined in health, and see what is the effect obtained in 2040. First of all, in this point of increase of the active population, not only is there a problem of inserting more persons into the active population sector, but year after year we suffer many losses of working hours derived from problems like back pain, anxiety, depression that we didn't pay attention to a few years ago, and we pay more and more attention to it. We are more aware of the medical, not only health and medical effects, but also socio-economic effects that this type of circumstances do have on the workers, and that lead to the payment of services due to disability that can be transient or permanent. It's around 8.5 billion euros per year in Spain. It's not a small amount, but apart from that, it has increased by 16% in the last decade. We are facing a problem that is a serious one for the Spanish economy, and that is going to be getting worse. And we see that investment in health can help to reduce the duration, the existence and reduction of these disabilities, thanks to better treatment or thanks to prevention, if you so want. This is the first element that we have put in the model. Secondly, we see that the medical advances, pharmaceutical, the new drugs have been able to lengthen the life expectancy. But there's greater life expectancy, those years that we live more, that's a very good news. We live them with health. And This it's an aim in itself because we want to be healthy and live better, but also because this allows us to promote measures of lengthening the working life. And this is essential so that we can sustain that increase of the rate of activity. In absence of those investments, it will be going down otherwise. If not so, increase the number of worked hours, and this is added to the GDP, a second path through which we are influencing positively on the GDP. In 2019, the activity rate, the population that was willing to work was, I'm sorry, I couldn't catch a figure, but from now on to 2040, we would be around 75.9%. But if we invest in health, we are going to be able to make this rate to be raised in 4 more points, coming close to a scenario of 80% of the activity rate. This is going to have a very striking effect on the maintenance of our capacity of generating an economic growth. And finally, we have the elements of productivity that is present as well in the research of Professor Lichtenberg. And it's essential as well. It helps. Health helps to the productivity. The value generation per worked hour is better and not declines with age, as normally happens, as the empirical evidence shows as of today. So this investment in health, we can see it as an incentive to spare in terms of capital, human capital. We can extract more return. We have more years to obtain a return from that investment. From the point of view, maybe it's too economicist, but it's like it is. We make the decision from this point of view. And secondly, it can neutralize or attenuate that trend to the decrease of productivity as age increases. And it's also an investment or R&D that contributes to generate knowledge, to widen the stock of technological capital of our economy, something that, as I said before, we don't have too much of it now. We have to make this part bigger. So influence on lower loss of hours, increasing the active population, the population that is willing to work and can work, and increase the productivity. Those three channels would make that the labor participation and the human and technological participation can be able to obtain an economic performance that is significant in this country, an increase of the GDP between 2025 and 2040 around 427 million euros, that in terms of yearly growth are 0.25 percentage points per year. So the addition of those three effects would make the Spanish economy grow 1/4 of a point more every year, and that the level of the GDP that we will find in 2040 is 4% greater, facilitating as well the transition of the Spanish economy towards, in view of the aging of the population, facing this aging. As conclusion, I could say that our work points to the need of increasing the resources assigned in health activities with continuity in time, that have to be accompanied by reforms in order to improve efficiency and coordination of the national health system, reinforcement of primary care as a very important element for generating economic effects, generate the and another opportunity when we have to strengthen the industrial capability and technological capability linked to health activities, reducing the dependency that we have now in some fields of foreign providers. An opportunity from the point of view of the economic analysis that is unequal for the Spanish economy, able to Emilio Ontiveros could help us, Emilio Ontiveros would say, it could help us to grow more and grow better. Thank you very much.